Today I thought it would be fun to do a little bit of a hypothetical video. I actually saw Rachel Palmieri do this video where she chose which palette she would declutter if she had to declutter one palette per brand that she has in her collection. I thought it was a super fun video and I want to do it as well. So let's get into it. So I'm also gonna do the reverse of this video. I'm also gonna tell you what I would keep if I would only keep one palette from each brand that I own. I didn't include the brands that I only have one palette from because, you know, there's not much to choose there. Also, I'm kind of planning on doing a eyeshadow palette declutter pretty soon. So this could also be a little bit of an inspirational video for that for me. I mean, some of these I'm actually considering decluttering. Alright, let's start out with the brand Glamlight. I decided I would probably declutter the Berrylicious palette from the Strawberry Shortcake collab. I don't think there's really much wrong with this palette. I think it's a really cute palette. I really love the colors. It's really bright. I love the quality. But for me personally, it's just a little too bright. And these looks always turn out kind of harsh on me. The greens are a little bit on the harsher side. All of these shimmers are a little deeper. Some of them seem light, but that's because of the shift that they have. They are all kind of like mid-tone to deep. Quality, once again, is amazing, but it's just not my perfect palette. And the other palettes that I have from Glamlight, I just like a little bit more. So I really like this brand actually. Like some of these palettes, I am just like, okay, that's not my palette at all. This is just a preference thing. That's why I chose this one. All right, then a brand that I'm pretty into, and it was kind of difficult to choose the one that I would keep. You will see that in the other video, but it wasn't too difficult to choose the one that I would declutter. So this is the Gloss God Smoke and Mirrors Remix eyeshadow palette. This is one of 4 eyeshadow palettes that I have from Gloss God, if I'm not mistaken. I love the color story of this because it is smoky, but it's also kind of like purple leaning. We have some neutrals. It's not all like gray, and I do love kind of like a mix of gray, hint of gray, cool tones like this. The thing is that I don't like this shade and I don't like this shade, and when you don't have those shades, you can't really deepen up a look with this palette. It's just then it just becomes very mid-tone. The shimmers in here, really pretty. The other mattes in here, no issue with them. I can still make pretty looks with it, and I don't think that I will actually declutter this one very soon, but I'm just a little disappointed in this palette, and the other palettes that I have from this brand are just really nice in my opinion and true favorites. Like this is just a little bit of a dud. I feel like they kind of missed the mark here. I'm still really looking forward to their next palette release. And then another brand where it was quite easy to decide which one I would declutter, but it's like so hard and I'm still like on the fence which one of these I should keep. Like I kind of tried to do it I kind of tried to do it simultaneously, so that's why I'm already referencing that. So this is Saga of Freya palette, the Freya Saga collection palette that had 2 sides, kind of looks like a book. I don't hear anyone talking about this. So it's kind of like the rosy purplish side with some cool tones. And then we have kind of like the warm tone side with a pop of green. This one is just a little bit of a tough palette. I feel like nobody really cares about this anymore. I did enjoy using it when it was kind of like newer. Now I don't see anyone mentioning this palette. Next to that, I feel like the packaging is just really annoying to show and to use. I would much rather not have 2 mirrors and just have kind of like a book that opens up like this, but then maybe the eyeshadows would get smooshed. So I don't think that this concept is really for me. I mean, the quality of this is not bad at all. I don't have any bad quality Oden's eye palettes. It's just a little like matte to me, like in the sense that Oden's Eye is such a good brand and they have done so many amazing palettes, and then compared to that, this is a little basic, but this is not a bad palette. But it's also just kind of like, it doesn't excite me anymore because there's just so much Oden's Eye that really gets me so excited. I feel like if it was just this part, just this, I would still be really like I would be willing to dip into this palette, but this is just not my call. So this is not my vibe. With that collection, I had mixed feelings, but I was like, okay, I will pick up one thing, I will try it. I did like it, but I don't know if I'm gonna keep this around for much longer, honestly. Another brand that I really like, but this has been on my so-so list for quite some time since I first reviewed it. I quite like the packaging of this. I didn't really get the theming, but it looks kind of fun. The inside, you know, quality of this is not bad, but I just didn't really get on board with it. I never really got a look with this where I was super wowed by it. I never really got a look here that I was super into. There are some pretty shades in here, but there are also shades that I feel are a little repetitive. For example, this one and that light shimmer, I feel like it's pretty similar. There's just something with the tones here, it doesn't really get me going. I feel like this is too like mustardy honey for me personally. I didn't really like the greens. And then what I kind of am left with is these kind of like deeper rosy tones, but I feel like I kind of dip into more fresher rosy tones, or almost a little bit more peachy rosy tones, something a little bit lighter sometimes. I do like rosy looks, but I feel like this is leaning in maybe a little too berry for me. When I look at this, I'm not like, okay, I want to do that look. And every time I've used it, I felt kind of like so-so about it. Then we have a Smashbox. To be honest, I have 2 palettes of this brand and I have enjoyed them very much. Especially a few years ago, really was into them, but they are getting a little bit old, and I feel like the next Declutter probably both are gonna go. I never really heard anyone like really liking Smashbox palettes, and I get it, but for me this was a really nice kind of like softer, smoky, easy on the go with good shades of matte palette. Like when I was traveling a lot, now I have a house, I live in a house, I live together with my boyfriend. Like there's not much traveling to do, there's not much sleeping over to do. I am sleeping in my own house and I like it that way. So this really doesn't have much of a purpose anymore, and also it's just old. So I would declare this, yes, and probably the other one too, but I had to choose something here. I feel like once Smashbox eyeshadow palettes leave my collection, they're gonna be gone for a long time. Unless Smashbox like reinvents themselves, but I feel like this... the brand is just not that exciting, I have to be honest. But I have liked the palette actually. And then for the brand Flower Nose. This is one where I have been collecting quite a few eyeshadow palettes. I feel like I have 5 or something from this brand. And I actually really enjoyed their eyeshadow formula. This is just a palette where I was a little unsure how I wanted to use it. I did find some ways I like to use it, but I feel like the other ones are just a little bit more user-friendly. The other ones that I have, I can really see the looks that I want to do, and this one is just a little like more tough for me. I do like it, I don't love it. I don't feel like all of the mattes and shimmers go together like perfectly. It's not my perfect palette, and the other palettes like all really have a definite place in my collection. Next up we have one of my favorite eyeshadow brands, and this is the Glaminatrix Cosmetics Nocturnal palette. I don't mind this palette. I feel like it's pretty good, but it's not amazing. The shimmers are not that super stunning, like a little see-through, very shiny, kind of shifty formula that they have in other palettes. And I just feel like this is, in comparison, a little like okay. It's very grungy. I feel like the packaging is kind of like big and bulky for what we have inside, and I feel like feels a little unfinished with this kind of like, feels like the inside is outside with how this ends here. I would have liked to have seen something a little bit more like thought through with the packaging. Yeah, this isn't my favorite Glaminatrix palettes. It's just the way it is. It's not my vibe, it's not my aesthetic, and the formulas are just not on par with what they have usually. And I gave it a pretty good review at first, but I'm just noticing that I'm not really reaching for this one that much, so that's why I chose this one. Juvia's Place. I used to have a lot of Juvia's Place palettes. I did declutter a few and I didn't really acquire more. It's not really a brand where I'm following the eyeshadow palettes that much, but this is the Army Quad. This is one of 2 palettes that I still have left from Juvia's Place. Oh no, I have 3 palettes. So this is one of 3 palettes. There's nothing wrong with this. It's really nice quality. I really like the colors. It's just not really like a full look. It's just shades that I don't really reach for. It's a little out there. It's a little deep. It's really cool. I really like it. When I look at it, I'm like, wow, that's such a cool palette, but I don't really use it, so I'd have to be practical and choose this one. Next up we have Catrice Cosmetics. So this is a Safari Fever Slim eyeshadow palette. I recently tried this. This was not my thing. Everything pulled very warm. I don't really like warm shades on the eyes. Maybe like if it's a peachy shade I could get on board. If it's a little bit more colorful I could get on board, but I felt like this looks very flat, very matte, very powdery, very warm. It just didn't suit me, and the formulas weren't amazing, so all of that together made this not really my kind of eyeshadow palette. I don't really like it. I do have to say Catrice is a brand where eyeshadows are usually more of a miss than a hit. And there were quite a few palettes where I was like, maybe it's time to declutter that. So I just chose this one, but I could have decluttered more. Colourpop actually is a difficult one, and I wouldn't want to declutter this, and there's nothing wrong with this quality. And I don't know about Colourpop. I mean, I haven't tried any eyeshadow palettes from them for years now. But the palettes that I do have, I really like and feel like staples in my collection. I just feel like what they're coming out with doesn't really add something that I need from them. It doesn't really add something that I'm missing. This is a palette that actually for me adds a lot to my collection. And these wine tones, I don't really see it anywhere else. And I do feel like this suits me quite well. Like, it's a bit of a strange combination with my coloring. I am more light. Light colors suit me best. But because my eyes are green, something just happens when I apply this on the eyes, and it's just really nice. And I don't want to declutter this. I don't want to declutter any Colourpop. I have decluttered all the Colourpop palettes that I didn't want. And now I feel like I'm left with the palettes that I do really want to keep, because I have had them for quite some years. Like, maybe at some point I should repurchase some of those. I wouldn't mind that. I don't know, why am I not really into Colourpop? I feel like it's not really a brand that makes sense for my channel, because I'm always gonna be late with those reviews, and it's not exciting enough to do like basically just for me. I mean, there are some brands that I purchase basically for me, and I hope some people are gonna watch it, but I feel like this doesn't really fall in either category, Colourpop. I actually have quite a few Kiko Milano palettes, and this is the Kiko Milano Holiday Premiere Make the Shine eyeshadow palette in 01 Color Symphony. And this is not really bad quality per se. I've actually advised someone to buy this that I knew was gonna enjoy this, was gonna appreciate this. But for me and my personal preference, my style, my makeup style, and what I expect from eyeshadow, I feel like this is just a little subtle. And I'm at a point that I actually quite like the Kiko Milano eyeshadow palettes that I have. And even the newer one that I was a little disappointed by in the first impression, I did another look with it and I really enjoyed the look. It's not that the shimmers are like so shifty, shiny, crazy. It's not like that, but it was a really pretty look. And I feel like with this one, doesn't give me a full look, doesn't inspire me that much. If these were like really nice, super shiny eyeshadows, then I could have gotten on board. Don't know if I'm gonna really be decluttering this yet, but I feel like from all the Kiko Milano palettes that I have, that this one could go for me personally. Then one that I wouldn't want to declutter, there's nothing wrong with this eyeshadow palette. I really like it actually. I reach for it quite a bit. This is the Kaleidos Quad in Venus Trap. This was from their Alma Viva collection. This is a very cool tone quad. It has a very shimmery shade and kind of like this gunmetal color. I really love the mattes here. The mattes are amazing. I really love the undertones. They really work for me. I really just dip into this for the mattes basically. And then sometimes I will like do a full look with this and go for the shimmer. But I actually really love to have those 3 mattes in a palette like this. Quality of this is amazing. I really like it. But the other Kaleidos palette, I have 2 Kaleidos palettes. The other Kaleidos palette you can pry out of my cold dead hands. I will never declutter that palette, and you will see in the video why and what is going on. I would have to let go of this one. I just can't let the other one go. I just have to keep it around. Also, I needed to add a little color in my life. I used to have more Kaleidos palettes. I used to have those Futurism palettes, but I just hated the packaging so much that I kind of like depotted them, and they're floating around in my collection somewhere, like some of the shades, not all of them. Those were not my favorites because of the packaging. It just didn't work for me. And then I still have 3 palettes from Martina Cosmetics in my collection. So this is not a brand that I buy from or try a lot. Like there was this one year I think that I was kind of like getting into it, but I'm not really sure if I should continue. Like they have been releasing color stories that aren't really up my alley, like very green, very warm. I want to see something else. Like I could be convinced, but I want to see something else. The last palette that I tried, I believe, was the Diner palette, which I liked but didn't love. And in the end, I decluttered it, but it's still floating around somewhere in this room. Me decluttering things, it's an interesting concept to me. It takes a while for things to actually leave my life, but they will leave like my active collection. Usually they won't come back, but they're just still hanging around. This one is one of the like Planet eyeshadow palettes. I cannot pronounce this. I do not know how to pronounce this, but this is the Mars eyeshadow palette. And the eyeshadow palettes that I still have are the Mars, the was it Neptune and Venus, something like that. This one is just very warm. I really like the quality of these small palettes. They are not available anymore, which is sad. They were limited edition. This is actually quite nice, but it's very warm for me. I don't really reach into this one a lot. The other ones have color stories that are more up my alley, so that's why I would choose this one. Next brand is What's Up Beauty. I decided to go with the Geodes palette. I like this palette. It has a nice color story. It's a little soft, a little dainty, a little pastel almost. I like this palette. It's a nice palette. Do I dip into it a lot? Not really, but it's a nice palette. But the other palette from them, I love. It's an amazing palette. I love the quality. It has such beautiful shifty shades. They really amped up the quality of the shimmers in this palette. Not in this palette. This was a little while ago that I tried this, that they came out with this. This is nice, but I just feel like they can do better. They have done better in the other palette that I own. So I would go with this one. And then for Unearthly Cosmetics, I've actually acquired a few extra Unearthly Cosmetics palettes in the past few months. And this one I got maybe a year ago. And I think the quality in this is amazing. This is a beautiful palette. It's just a little harsh for me. It just scares me a little bit and I don't go into it a lot. And I feel like their newer color stories are a little bit more user-friendly for me personally and my makeup style. It is really nice though. I could still see myself doing looks with this, but it's just the one that is least up my alley. But all of the quality, like all of the palettes that I have from Unearthly are amazing quality. So I would love to keep this. I would love to keep this around, but if I had to choose something, I would choose this one. I feel like it says a lot about a brand if you cannot really think of a bad quality palette. Like I haven't decluttered any Unearthly either. Like, they're doing pretty good, in my opinion. And then the last brand, it was pretty easy for me to decide which one I would declutter from Luna Beauty. The one that I would keep, a little bit more difficult. I feel like this one, it's just the old formula from Luna Beauty. I feel like at this point he hadn't perfected his formulas. He hadn't perfected his vibe of the brand, but I feel like now he's very on brand. He really has an aesthetic that speaks to me. Here he was still kind of like on a journey. This is like the friends we made along the way, this palette. This needed to exist to get where he needed to be. This is not a bad palette though, and I've actually done a lot of looks with this that I enjoy. It's definitely not bad quality. It's just a little out there, just a little bright. And because of that, I don't feel like super inspired right away when I look at it. Also, it just doesn't have the new Little Beauty shimmer formula. That is like one of my absolute favorite formulas in shimmers to exist. I mean, it's so shiny, it's so stunning. And this one has some more shiny shimmers, but it has some more satin shimmers as well. Like, there are a lot of really nice purple looks and pinky looks that you can do with this, but there are also a lot of shades that I wouldn't choose in this. And if I didn't have it, I don't feel like I would really miss this a lot, to be honest. So I would go with this one. Alright, so those were all the brands that I own. I am a very like brand loyal person. I like to like stick to the brands I know and love. And so here we are. Let me know if you agree with my choices. Like, of course, like you probably don't have an idea of what I exactly have in my collection. Oh, you know what? Let me know which of these brands is your favorite. Like for eyeshadow, let me know. And thanks so much for watching. And don't forget to like this video if you liked it. And don't forget to subscribe. And then I will see you in my next one. Bye bye.